Morning, Razor.
Firstly, before I ask you about Bournemouth, Christian Atsu, I think the latest is that his whereabouts is unknown after there were reports that he was pulled from the rubble of a building. A lot of your players and staff will have spent time with him here. I know you took him to Bournemouth several years ago. It's clearly a very worrying time, isn't it?
Hugely worrying. Really enjoyed working with Christian. A great lad, great player. Our thoughts are with him, his family. We hope for some good news. We hope he's okay. But been really concerned for him and his welfare this week.
And those players and staff here that know him, are you able to support them at this time if they need it?
Yeah, I mean, it's been difficult because there's been conflicting stories coming out about his whereabouts. So it's been very tough. I can't imagine how his family are feeling. But from the bottom of our hearts, we wish him well. And hope there's a positive ending.
Moving on to the match and team news, will Alexander Isak be in your squad for the weekend?
Yes, he will be. He's fully recovered, no problems. As I said initially, I think he got the ball on the head and he didn't feel too bad, but we had to follow protocols. So he's been good this week.
What are your emotions now ahead of a first return to Bournemouth as a manager with Newcastle?
Yeah, we've been preparing the game as normal as we would. I think the emotional side, it's difficult to predict how I'll feel walking out to a stadium that I know so well and so many people that I know so well. That's very difficult to put myself there. For the moment, we're just preparing a game as we would any other Premier League game and making sure we get our players ready for what will be a really tough game. I know from the other side, preparing a game as Bournemouth manager, it's a special place to play football when it's rocking, and we need to be ready for that kind of atmosphere.
What do you make of the way things are going there? Because there was a takeover a couple of months ago. I think the manager Gary O'Neill might be getting a bit of criticism from fans because of the way results have gone in recent weeks, and they're in the relegation zone.
Yeah, well, I think it's very important for us that we don't look at that. I think that let's look at what they've done in recent weeks. So they've signed some very good players. They've invested in the transfer market. So I think this is a different Bournemouth team to the one that we've seen in previous weeks. I think they're very athletic. They've got some really good athletes in their team. There's a lot of pace now all through the team. So I think this is a different game. I think we need to be ready for what's ahead.
Just on a slightly different note, I wanted to ask you about your coaching staff. Many of them will be going back to Bournemouth for the first time with Newcastle, with you. You're always very keen to give credit to other people when things go well, but the team of staff and coaches that you've had, many of you have been together for a number of years. Just how central have they been to those successes, and how important is that relationship and the trust that you have?
Yeah, it's huge. I think we have been together a long time. We've been a very stable staff. And I think that consistency's really helped us because we all know each other so well. We all know how we work, what we want to deliver on the training pitch. And the messages are then consistent to the players. So we've added Graham to the group, Graham Jones, and he's been a brilliant addition to my coaching team. I love working with him. He gives a totally unique perspective. But Jason and I have worked together all through my management journey, and I think we're a really good partnership together. So very different, but there's a force when we come together that's really powerful, I feel. And then Stephen Purchase and Simon Weatherstone, Dan Hodges, they all do brilliant work, and I can't praise them enough.
And that partnership with Jason Tyndall we see on a match day, because you tend to be in the technical area together for pretty much the entire 90 minutes. Is that something that you've always done, and how does it work? Yeah,
so when we came together, we were initially a partnership, really. Although I was named manager and he was assistant manager, we were almost as one. We were learning together. We had no real experience together, although Jason had managed at Weymouth. So it really was a sort of a level partnership. Now then, as we've gone on and developed our relationship naturally, I'm thrust everywhere as the manager, and but I wouldn't say the relationship's changed too much. We are a partnership on the training pitch. We're definitely a partnership on match day, where Jason's doing certain things and I'm doing certain others. And it's getting your staff. I think the beauty of any group of people is you all have different strengths and weaknesses, and it's getting people to show their strengths, and then hopefully you're a more powerful unit because of that.
And the last thing, you've mentioned that you've added Graham Jones to your team. He was here already. You've added a goalkeeping coach as well, Shwan Jalal. There have been other additions to the staff. Could there be more? Will you look to expand the backroom team?
I think at the moment I'm happy with the balance that we have, but I think that's never a closed book. I think football has changed so much. Your preparation is so in depth now. There's so much analysis and data and lots of things that you need using in the right way, that who knows, in the future we might need more, we might need less. You know, sometimes you can have too many, so getting the balance right is a key thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Eddie, you mentioned Alexander Isak there and the fact he will be available. Is there any other team news? Are you likely to be missing anyone for the trip?
Matt Targett will be out still. Javier Mincuyo's getting close. And Bruno, obviously, we miss.
Yeah. Is Matt Targett, how close is he to a return?
Yeah, he's close to training, I think. We haven't seen him yet. He's worked hard on his rehabilitation with the physios, but he's getting very, very close to returning to us.
A lot of the supporters securing tickets in the last couple of days, and you can kind of sense the excitement that it's just 2 weeks away. How are you feeling now in the build up to the final? I know you've got these two big games before then, but are you managing to keep it all separate still?
Okay, the final is 2 weeks and there's 2 games, so I'm not thinking about the final at all, other than probably like everyone else around Newcastle with tickets. I think that's the big word around the city at the moment. I think I've had requests from all sorts of people I've never met, random text messages from people I don't know their number. Can you get me a ticket? But I think that's the sort of been the focus of everyone. Obviously, I'd urge the players, and we've tried to help the players with that to make sure that that's not a distraction. But apart from that, we know we can't look beyond Bournemouth. And then once Bournemouth's done, we can't look beyond Liverpool. The cup final build-up will take care of itself in that final week.
Have you been able to help any of those desperate for a ticket?
Absolutely not. I'm desperate for tickets myself. So.
And I know you mentioned last week that your kids are looking forward to it, and you know it's something they're talking about as well. Are you managing to keep their minds focused away?
They've got their homework to do, Keith. So I've been helping with their maths homework this week. So now there's no talk of, I've banned it from the house, no talk of cup final.
On a totally different note, Manchester City this week been in the news again. They're alleged to have broken 100 Premier League rules regarding financial activity over the last decade. As a competitive team in the league, how do you feel about that?
I think let's let the investigation do its work. I don't think I have any comment other than that, really. Very difficult to talk about other clubs. I'm very loath to do that in any way. Let's see what happens from the investigation.
And it's also been revealed today that the land behind the Gallowgate, which was sold by the club previously, is being bought back by the club. Potential future for stadium, the stadium being expanded. How do you feel about that? Because obviously the ground is full every single week at the moment, and there's an amazing atmosphere. Is that something that you would like to see in the future?
I think I've said many times that St James's Park is an unbelievable place to play football, and to be part of that experience every week is a brilliant thing. Anything we can do to enhance that for the supporters, I'm fully behind. So yeah, I think if there is an opportunity to expand and make it bigger, I don't think we'd have an issue selling the tickets currently, and make the atmosphere and the opportunity for people even better to come and watch us.
There's that word, tickets, again.
It's coming back to it, isn't it?
Thanks.
Morning, Eddie. First and foremost, can we chat about tickets after the game? Secondly, and most importantly, just a little bit out of left field, I remember asking you about this actually back in August. There's been a lot of reports over the last few days about the cameras behind the scenes at Newcastle United. Following on from these reports, how do you feel about them? How has your experience been with them in that time?
I do think this has been quite a different season in terms of we've had cameras following us really all season. I think there's been a big step up in that respect, and I think that's the way in football is going. I think there's more access. People want to know what goes on behind the scenes. I think from my side, there's always a line you sort of don't want to cross. There's intimate things that happen in a changing room and team meetings and training ground that I always believe should stay in-house. But we're prepared to help and give access to people, you know, as long as it's discussed and planned and briefed. So I think that's where it is. I think something will happen, but I still think we're at the early stages of it.
Last week, of course, was such a breathless, ridiculous week, even by Newcastle standards for the League Cup semi-final, then straight into West Ham. How important have these last few days been just to take a metaphorical breath, I suppose, out of this game against Bournemouth?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think we did. I think it was an emotional week. We were disappointed not to win against West Ham, so there was that feeling that we needed to do better in certain aspects of our play. We tried to refine that and put that right on the training pitch this week and find the missing ingredient to our game to try and kick us into winning games again. So yeah, that's what we've tried to do this week, but we know it's going to be a tough game this weekend.
Alan St-Maximin's performance against West Ham kind of divided opinion, as he seems to have divided opinion all the way through the season. How far is he off the level that we saw from him against Manchester City earlier on the season? What do you need to do to get him back to that level?
I think Maxi's someone that probably performs better with a consistent run of games, but I would say that would be the case for all players. So I think he has a window and an opportunity to impress. I thought there were some aspects of his game that were in a really good place last week. I thought he, most importantly, tried to give his all for the team. I don't think there was any lack of effort from him. I thought West Ham managed him well in the game, and teams will always look at him as a big threat and probably produce their game plans on keeping him quiet. But it's up to us and him to try and find a solution to those game plans. Been really pleased with his attitude and how he's worked this week. I think Maxi's in a better place.
Just on the weekend game, how does the Newcastle United Eddie Howe compare to the Bournemouth Eddie Howe?
I'd say probably 99% the same. But I do think naturally as you manage more games and just live in the job longer, I'm talking management here, you do naturally evolve and change, and you have different ideas and different reactions to maybe the same situation that you would have faced. You might act differently as you get more experience. But I think the fundamental way in which I manage and my beliefs have always remained the same. And unless I have totally radically new ideas, I think I'll always be the same in my methods.
Just finally, Joe Linton had his baby gender reveal on Sunday. Were you aware of this? And what does it say about Joe Linton, about how much he loves this club, the fact that he'd do it there at St James's Park on Sunday?
Well, I was aware of it, but I wasn't quite aware of the scale. And to see the photographs, which I did, I thought it was a brilliant thing. And again, you're right, it epitomises him. He is an incredible person. Really family orientated man. Great moment, I think, to see the stand in the background as the blue flames come up. I think those photos will live with his family forever, and I think it's a symbolic moment in his career, really.
Thanks, Eddie.
I think it survived. Just a couple of burn marks.
Morning, Eddie. You've had a bit longer to look at your new signings, particularly Anthony Gordon. What more have you seen from him this week in training, and what more can he bring for you?
A really positive debut from him last week. Really pleased. Your first impression that you give the home supporters is such an important moment. I think his first touch was a brilliant one, and from then he was into the game and he was away. So I was really pleased with that. I think he's taken that confidence into training this week. He's keen. I did some one-to-one work with him on Monday. He then trained with the group the rest of the week. Yeah, he's shown some really good signs. I think his overall performance levels have been very good.
And you still have a selection headache, I guess. Are things becoming more clear of your team selection for Saturday?
I wouldn't say headache. I'd say I have choices, and that's a brilliant thing for a manager to have. I never look at that negatively, although sometimes the decisions can be tough because you're choosing two players in perhaps one position that you love. But that's the difficult side of management. But I'd much rather have that problem because the squad needs to be big enough and strong enough for a long campaign.
I was listening to the radio. You can't get away from the cup final. I know you want to concentrate on Bournemouth, and there was debate about do players try and protect themselves so they don't get injured, or do you see it that it goes the other way, that players give you more because they want to be in that starting 11?
Certainly like the latter. I think naturally players will be thinking about it in a sense that they want to secure their place in the team. Their best way to do that is to play at their best levels and make sure that there's no chance I'll leave them out of the team. So the best way is to give their all in training, give their all in the games, and continue their good form. So that's the only way to think about it, I think, if you're a player.
And just finally for me, you said, you know, you can't underestimate Bournemouth. They've recruited well in January, but with them still kind of struggling to get a run together, you must see this as a really good opportunity for you to get back to winning.
I think every game is an opportunity to do that. We're desperate to win. We want momentum in our season. We don't want any kind of lull that we allow to develop in our results. We're 16 games unbeaten. I said that after that West Ham game. We have to be very positive about what we've done and what we're doing, but we need to win, and we need that desire within the squad. But this is, as I said earlier, it's a different Bournemouth team, so this is a tough game for us.
Thank you.
Simon?
Morning, Eddie. As we said, Bournemouth in a slightly difficult situation. I spoke to somebody who does a Bournemouth podcast this week, and he predicted that you'll actually get a better reception than their head coach tomorrow night when you walk out. If that's the case, how would that make you feel?
I think one thing I know from my history with the Bournemouth supporters, they always support their team and they always support the people that are employed by the club. So I've got no doubt that they'll support Gary and their players, and we need to be ready for that. If you don't start well in games like this, it's very difficult to recover. So I think our start to the game is hugely important for us.
Okay, thank you. Damien?
Eddie, just going back to Man City without going into the situation, does that illustrate why you've been so keen to emphasise the financial restrictions you've had to work under?
I've always said that financial fair play is real for us. I don't quite understand, I'm not there doing the figures and the numbers, and I don't quite understand how it fully works. I'm obviously led by the people above me at the club to say what we can and can't do. But certainly it's been there, and I think it will continue to be there for us unless we can dramatically change our revenue streams. So that's the way football's going.
And just on Anthony, I know it's not been your practice with new signings, but given that he knows the league, if you wanted to throw him in, is he ready to start?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll have no doubts about playing him from the off. He knows the Premier League, he knows the intensity, he's been to all the grounds. He's played for a huge club, so no worries there.
Okay. Ian?
Hi, morning, Eddie. Your second spell at Bournemouth, you were there a long time. You were arguably the most settled manager in the country. Had things worked out differently in 2020, could you still be here? Or did you have any inclination to move, whatever the circumstances?
I do think in management you don't have an infinite time in the job. I think there's a time probably where people have had enough of you, to be honest. I'm talking probably the players. So you either have to do one or two things. You have to consistently change the players, or the manager has to leave. And I do think there's a shelf life for managers. So I'd probably reach that point where for the football club I needed to move, really. And I definitely felt that going into that last season. But the last season was totally different. It was such a unique season with COVID, and the ending of that season was so disappointing. I still don't believe would have been, as I say, Bournemouth would have been relegated if it hadn't been for COVID, because the supporters were such a difference maker. And that's what we face going into this game, where those supporters can be very powerful at such a tight-knit ground, and that's what we have to guard against.
What was your perception from afar? I'm sure you had perceptions about all the club. What was your perception of Newcastle at the time?
At what time?
Of Newcastle. When you were Bournemouth manager, I'm sure you had perception of every club in the country. What did you think of Newcastle? Did you see them as a sleeping giant, as a club that had been seriously underinvested? How did you see it?
Well, my memories of Newcastle were always attached to the games we had against them, because you don't sit there and sort of take yourself into that place about all Premier League teams. But the games against them, I remember the first time I went to St James's Park, and I've said this many times, I was like, wow, what a place to play. And we won that game. And it was, I loved the experience of managing there. And I hadn't said that about many games that I'd been to in the Premier League at that time. So I thought that left a lasting impression on me that day.
Okay. Miles?
We've spoken a bit about Callum Wilson, his need for a goal. He scored his first goal for some time at the weekend. What kind of difference has that made to him on the training pitch, and how important was that to him personally?
I'm sure it was important to him. Callum's the same on the training pitch. He's bright, bubbly. You can hear his laughter through through the training ground every day. He's such a positive guy. So that didn't change. The fact that he hadn't scored, no change in his belief, his self-belief. You know, he's got high confidence levels at all times. But I do think that goal was important for him, probably a relief. And now hopefully he can kick on.
You see each week the club publishes a training gallery, and there's some young players, different faces some weeks. What have you made of the players that make the step up and train with you, and what's the process in terms of selecting who comes up to train with the first team?
Yeah, so if we have a gap and we feel we want to boost our numbers, we will speak with Ben Dawson and the staff that see the 23s train regularly, and we'll ask their opinion on who they feel should come up. It's really important they have that power, because you want that motivation from the group to be a really high level, to try and impress the staff there, to try and come up with here, because that's where they want to be. They want to be in our eyes. I've got to say, the lads that have come up, Louis Miley's been with us consistently. He's doing really well in his development, and there's been other players that have really impressed.
Okay, Lee.
Eddie, you obviously conceded a goal for the first time in a long while in the Premier League the other day. In a positive way, psychologically, did conceding that strip away a little bit of the anxiety around it, and you just focus back on the winning rather than getting records, or does it all mould into one for you?
I personally, just from my perspective, there was no anxiety around it. I was hopeful that we could go to another clean sheet. When I was playing, sometimes that probably was different. Sometimes it was on my mind, although not often did we have too many shutouts when I was playing. Might be a common denominator there, but yeah. So, but from my side, I know the players were disappointed to concede last week, but that's part of the game. We just have to make sure we respond.
And on the back of that, obviously you're unbeaten since Liverpool way back in August. Do you carry that into each game, or again is it just focusing on the one goal of getting the points?
Can only be about getting the points, and we need that mentality in all our games. And that's why I say the cup final, there could be no thought of that. There could be no thought of Liverpool. We just have to focus on our next task.
And going back to Bournemouth, you're going to get that reception, but I guess as soon as the whistle goes, it's about being in the black and white sort of dugout.
Of course it is. It's about us. It's about getting the points we need. So I can't affect the outside conditions. I can only try and affect what we're doing as a team and make sure we're as best prepared as we can.
Last time this fixture happened, St Maximin got 3 assists in the game. I'm sure you remember it from the other side, but you'd love him to go down there and do something like that. He's had his 69 minutes under his belt. This is a real opportunity for him now.
Well, he's capable. He's capable of some brilliant things, and that day he was very, very good. There was no crowd. It was a really strange atmosphere that day, but I thought Newcastle were very good. Scored some good goals, made it difficult for us, and there'll be certainly a few players that played that day will be playing, so hopefully good memories for them.
Just finally on Dan Burn, do you see him as a centre-back playing out of position, or is he there on merit as a left-back in your eyes, with Matt Target obviously coming back soon?
Yeah, probably at the start. Saw him as a centre-back out of position and playing. I think Matt got ill and in the lead up to Fulham, so we played down there. We won the game, kept with the same team the next week. Now I don't look at him like that. I look at him as a left-back. I have to. He's played there for so long now that we've trained him in that position. He's worked in that position, which I think was important for him, because initially I think we played him there with a view to bringing him back inside. Yeah. So he was training as a centre-half, but then playing as a left-back. That was only for about a week. Very quickly we realised we need to train him in his position if he's going to play there again. So then he's been consistently training and working on his game, and I have to say, for me, he's got better and better.
Okay, Luke?
On financial fair play, do you think that what's happened to Man City gives a greater understanding of the way Newcastle have approached things? There's all that stuff about richest club in the world at the start, but they've been very sensible, haven't they, the people above you in the way they've done things? Yeah,
they have, and I think quite rightly so, because the conditions that we face mean that we have to, and I think hopefully it does give a greater understanding to our methods. What we've tried to do, me in the press conference, is trying to explain it. As I say, it's very difficult to understand it unless you've got all the numbers in front of you. So to actually fully give you the information is almost impossible. But then by how we act in a transfer market, hopefully it makes sense.
My questions are a bit scattergun this morning, but how do you feel when you hear words like tired and fatigue and the players are tired and it's been a long season? Do you have to be on guard against that as manager?
Very much so. I think I don't necessarily agree with those words. I do think it's a state of mind, even for myself. Some days when you wake up early and you're in the gym and feel a bit tired today, you think, come on, have a word with yourself. You're just telling yourself that, and instantly you feel different. And you can change your mindset and your feel with a few words, with actions, with how you stand, with how you sit. So I do agree that how sort of I speak to players and my communication with them is important, staff as well, and even their talk between themselves, because we've had a free week for this game. We've had a week to prepare. There should be no fatigue in the camp.
And just finally, your sort of motto has become your motto this season, not here to be liked, here to win. Is that the biggest, do you have that going around your head going back to Bournemouth?
No, not really. To win, yes. The first bit, no. Like, we're here to win. We're here to do everything in our power to do that, regardless of the opposition. It doesn't matter who it is. I know people will get sidetracked media-wise with different weeks, different opponents, but we prepared this week to try and win the game.
Thank you.
Martin?
The geography's changed, the facilities have changed since you started at Bournemouth, Eddie. But does the importance you give to coaching remain pretty much exactly the same as back then?
Definitely. I think if you spent a day with us on the training pitch, hopefully you'd see that. I am still very much in the belief that you can make huge differences to players on the training ground with consistently good work, with love, attention to their game. That's never changed from day one of my career to now. Of course, the demands of the job that I'm in now are greater, in a sense of my time is quite a scarce resource during the day, so I have to prioritise, and that's why I have a bigger staff now to help. At the beginning of my coaching journey, it's me and Jace doing everything. Now I have a much bigger coaching team that can take some of the weight off me and Jason individually. But the principle is very much the same, and I believe in improvement and self-improvement regardless of age.
And no disrespect, does that remain the same with elite players?
Yeah, it does, but maybe in a different way. So I wouldn't try and coach someone to the nth degree. I'd try and look at them as a player and go, right, does 95% things brilliantly. Can we make an extra 5% in this area of his game? So I think you've got to go to the detail part. But I wouldn't be over-coaching every player. I treat players very differently depending on their needs, really.
Is it your favourite part of the job?
Without a doubt, I think that the favourite part is when you coach someone and try and add things to their game to then see that on a match day. There's just a nice sense of satisfaction that you help them produce something good.
And is player development a conversation you have with potential signings?
I think depending on their journey, really, to that point, I wouldn't necessarily, that wouldn't be a sell of mine maybe to a more experienced player. It might be a sell of mine to someone who's early stages of their career. I think every player is different, and I think you need to communicate clearly your need or your want for them to come to you and what you can offer them, because it might be development, but it might be an opportunity to play in an incredible stadium for a massive club. So yeah, it depends what it is.
Craig?
Morning. I don't feel tight anymore after what you just said. Quite inspirational.
Good. Pleased to help, Craig.
It was interesting listening to your answer there when you said that your shelf life had reached expiry down at Bournemouth, and of course you talked about that game against Newcastle. I mean, this is a compliment, but that Bournemouth team during that latter part of the season was unrecognisable from what we now see as an Eddie Howe team. Did you feel almost helpless? Had you lost control to a degree? Had it sort of run away from you?
That is quite a negative question, Craig, isn't it? No, I never felt I'd lost control. I think there was many, I've said this so many times, but so many different reasons to why a team doesn't perform to how it can do. And that was a season where I was incredibly frustrated because I feel we had a good squad of players, but anything that could go wrong sort of did tend to go wrong. I thought we got crippling injuries during that season. If you look at some of the team selections that I had to put out, we were constantly playing catch up to that. So then when players did come back fit, they weren't physically fit to play at their best levels. And then COVID struck. And that took away a huge weapon of ours, which was the crowd at the stadium. And that day against Newcastle would almost epitomise that. Then we had the ghost goal against Aston Villa, which ultimately cost us relegation. Because without that, we would have stayed up. So, yeah, a whole host of things sort of turned against us. But I think sitting here now, I think another great learning experience for me. Painful for me as well and the club. But it's great to see Bournemouth back in the Premier League.
I didn't mean it as a compliment.
Oh, thank you. It didn't feel that way.
The prospect of St James's Park Stadium expansion, how much would you still love to be the manager here, not having reached that shelf life expiry by the time there's potentially 60,000 playing in the Champions League, that prospect?
Yeah, naturally, I hope my time doesn't come by then, but you can't control that. I want to try and do everything in my power to make Newcastle stronger for the here and now and for the future, and what happens beyond that and time lengths and all these things I can't control, but definitely making the club in a stronger position every day is a big focus of mine.
And that stadium expansion was all part of that vision, that journey potentially where you want to take the club and be part of?
Difficult. I'm not in control of the stadium plans and what they're going to do in that respect, but I'd love to see just more opportunity for more people to come. If that's a possibility, then I'm all for it.
Thanks, Craig. Kieran?
Eddie, it's rare you're not wearing the Newcastle badge. I mean, how quickly did you feel a Newcastle man after such a long association with Bournemouth?
Yeah, that's a good question, really. I think the break helped me, without a shadow of a doubt, transition to a new club. I think so often you see managers go from club to club very quickly. That's not a criticism. That's fine. I did the same when leaving Bournemouth to Burnley, but probably just from my own experience, there's a much better way of transitioning into a new club is to have a break, to have time away, to collect your thoughts. So you enter the club in just a clear state of mind with a clear objective, without any baggage from what's happened 2-3 days ago at your former club. So I think if there's a way to do it, that was the perfect way for me to enter Newcastle, feeling totally committed to the club, totally attached to the aims and goals that we needed to achieve.
Look at the modern game now. Can managers still build dynasties like you did at Bournemouth? Is that what you hope to do here?
I didn't really plan to build a dynasty at Bournemouth. It just happened. We were successful enough to stay in the job, really, and you just roll from season to season with new objective, new goals. I wouldn't change the journey for a second, but if I look back to the start point of that second spell, I had no idea what was going to unfold and how long we were going to be there. So I'm sort of in the same position now. I'm attacking every day, trying to be successful, trying to build something, and how long we can build that for will be really in the players' hands, really, in terms of results that we get.
Jordan?
Just given the amount of tackling players you've got in your squad, obviously Anthony Gordon's came in, Alexander Isak's back to full fitness as well. May you have to consider a change of formation somewhere down the line to get that attacking talent into the starting 11?
We're always open, never closed off to formations. Formations for me are just a vehicle for you to play. They're not the be all and end all in terms of I'm fixated on one. I've been consistent with this season's selection because we've been successful, and the team dynamics and relationships in the teams have been really good in terms of our partnerships and how we've played. But yeah, so we're open, but at the moment I wouldn't see a need to dramatically change what we're doing. But who knows what happens in the future.
And just on Anthony Gordon as well, how has he settled in? Because it seems already from your social media that he's actually embraced the city as well as hopefully the football club as well.
Yeah, I can only speak for what I see day to day, and he's been very good, very positive, very happy. He's been good on the training pitch. He's been receiving all the information that we've been giving him in a really nice way, so we're enjoying working with him.
And Harrison Ashby, he wasn't in the squad last week. Is he one for the future, if you like, rather than being someone that's going to be in the match day squad straight away?
Yeah, possibly. I think Harrison has come to us in a good place. Again, he's trained really well. He's one that we'll work with behind the scenes. Needs to improve certain things in terms of his fitness, because I don't think he'd played a huge amount of football in the last few months, but we certainly like him a lot.